I woke to the sterile hum of hospital monitors and the faint scent of antiseptic, my body wrapped in crisp, white sheets that felt heavier than usual. My hands, swollen and trembling, rested atop the blanket, gripping the edges as if I could somehow anchor myself to reality. Outside, the city stretched beneath a silver morning sky, and for a brief moment, I let myself imagine walking down those streets again, strong and unhurried. Then my phone buzzed, a small, insignificant vibration that sent a jolt through my still weak arms. I squinted at the screen. Notifications.
Tags.
Social media posts. My stomach knotted before I even realized what I was seeing. Pictures of my family, laughing, glasses raised, music blasting, completely oblivious to the sterile reality I had just survived hours ago. I stared, incredulous, a bitter taste rising in my throat. I should have felt anger, maybe even rage, but instead, there was this strange mixture of hurt and ironic detachment. I had always tried to keep them close, to earn their approval, and now the proof of where their priorities truly lay was splashed across my feed. I sank back into the pillows, running a shaky hand through my hair. The silk of my blouse from the morning's pre-op routine still clung to me, a reminder of the life I had been living, controlled, composed, professional. Yet beneath it all, I realized how fragile my illusions had been. The world, it seemed, had just offered me clarity in the cruelest, most glaring way possible. I remember a time when I believed in their words, as if they were gospel. Back then, I was 23, freshly graduated, full of hope, and desperate for their validation. My parents' living room felt smaller than it should have, suffocating with the weight of their judgment. The chandelier above flickered slightly, and every tick of the ornate wall clock seemed to echo my racing heartbeat. "Why are you wasting your time with that job?" my mother had asked, voice sharp as she swirled her wine. "You could do so much better if you actually listened to us." I remember the lump in my throat, the way my hands shook as I tried to speak, trying to explain my dreams, my ambitions, my need to carve my own path. My father just folded his arms, gazed cold, and said nothing, his silence a weapon that cut deeper than any words. The sting of being dismissed, of being invisible in my own family, burned hotter than any argument. It wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal. I had given them my trust, my devotion, my unwavering belief in family unity. And yet, there I was, standing alone in a room where approval was the only currency that mattered. It was during that lowest point that Grandma June's letter arrived. Her handwriting was careful, looping elegantly across the cream-colored stationery, and her words were a lifeline. "Darling, you carry a fire they may never see. Guard it, nurture it, and use it to light your own path. You don't need their applause to know your worth." I held the letter in trembling hands, the paper soft beneath my fingers, her words sinking in, planting a seed of independence that would grow quietly, invisibly, for years. That day, I made a choice. I would no longer wait for them to see me. I would stand on my own, prove my worth not to them, but to myself. I remember walking out of that living room, the air thick with unspoken disappointment, my chest tight, yet lighter somehow. That was the first time I felt the strange mixture of fear and exhilaration that comes with stepping into the unknown. And though I didn't yet realize it, that was the moment my real journey began. After that day, I began to build a life that belonged entirely to me. I rented a small apartment downtown, its windows overlooking the bustling streets of Chicago, and every morning I woke to the hum of the city, reminding me that the world didn't wait for anyone's permission. I kept the apartment simple, minimal, but every corner bore a piece of my independence: a soft leather chair for reading late into the night, a small desk littered with notebooks and sketches, and a single framed photo of Grandma June, her smile a quiet affirmation that I wasn't alone in spirit. I found a mentor shortly after, Clara, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to see through every doubt I tried to hide. She didn't coddle me, but she believed in me in a way no one else had. "You have talent, Ava," she said the first day I walked into her small, sunlit studio. Now, let's make sure the world knows it too. The early days were grueling. I worked 12-hour shifts, taught myself design software, pitched to clients who never responded, and wrestled with a gnawing fear that maybe I wasn't enough. Nights blurred into mornings, my fingers raw from endless typing, my eyelids heavy with exhaustion. I remember the sting of rejection like physical pain, each no chipping at my confidence, but also shaping it, refining it into something sharper, more resilient. And then came the small victories. My first client who trusted me with a project bigger than I had dared to dream, the first paycheck that covered rent and left a little extra, the first time I saw my work displayed publicly and felt a rush of quiet pride. Each step, however tiny, was a declaration. I could succeed without their approval. I kept my growth hidden from my family. Social media posts were modest, carefully curated snippets that suggested a normal, uneventful life. I didn't want them to see. Not yet, not until the day I could step into my own power and show them the woman I had become. As the years passed, my efforts multiplied. I moved into a loft that overlooked the skyline, the walls adorned with bold art and designs that reflected my voice. My client list grew, my reputation solidified, and with every success, the shadow of my family's dismissiveness faded. I was no longer the girl waiting for approval. I was Ava Sullivan, a woman who had built her life from scratch, piece by piece, fueled by a determination that neither betrayal nor doubt could break. Through it all, I kept Grandma June's letter tucked in my desk drawer, a silent reminder that belief in myself was more powerful than any external validation. And though I was careful to hide my full success from the world, each achievement quietly reinforced a truth I now carried in every confident step I took. I didn't need them to see me to know I was extraordinary. I hadn't expected them to show up unannounced, but there they were, my parents, my older brother, and a few distant cousins, standing awkwardly in the doorway of my loft. Their expressions were a mixture of curiosity, confusion, and, if I looked closely, something that resembled guilt. They had always assumed I was still struggling, that life had somehow humbled me back into the girl they once dismissed. I watched them take in space. My loft was expansive, sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city skyline. The walls were lined with my work, framed designs, photography, and awards I had quietly accumulated over the years. A custom desk sat near the window, sleek and organized, papers neatly stacked, a high-end laptop humming softly beneath my hands. Every detail spoke of care, independence, and accomplishment. I didn't greet them immediately. I let them wander, let their eyes roam, let the silence stretch. There's a particular satisfaction in letting someone absorb reality on their own before you speak, watching the realization dawn slowly, painfully, beautifully. "Wow," my father finally muttered, his voice quieter than usual, almost lost in the soft hum of the city outside. My mother's eyes darted from the minimalist furniture to the awards on the walls, her lips parting slightly as if she wanted to speak, but couldn't find words strong enough to undo the years of dismissal. I cleared my throat and allowed a small, confident smile. "Surprised?" I asked, my voice calm, steady, but carrying the weight of every insult, every dismissive comment, every moment I had been overlooked. They turned fully toward me, their surprise palpable. "Ava, my brother began, but faltered. I held up a hand, stopping him. "Let me make one thing clear. Every project here, every client, every award, every dollar you didn't believe I could earn, I did it myself. I didn't wait for your approval. I didn't wait for your support. And I certainly didn't need your validation." The photos, the social media posts from the other day, they had been a stark reminder. While I was in surgery, my family had been celebrating, laughing as if the world owed them joy, while mine had been hanging by a thread. And now, standing here, I could see their surprise and shame reflected back at them. It was the proof of who they really were, and it didn't hurt me anymore. I let them take it in fully, the city skyline beyond a silent witness to the power shift unfolding in that loft. Then, quietly, I added, "I'm not the struggling girl you thought you left behind. I'm the woman who took her pain, her fear, and built a life they never imagined I could." Their silence was deafening. Eyes widened, mouths parted. There was disbelief, shame, and finally, a kind of recognition, their first real acknowledgement of the woman I had become. The power had shifted. Not through confrontation, not through anger, but through undeniable truth, success born of resilience, independence, and sheer determination. For the first time, I realized how sweet it felt to simply stand in my own power, letting my life, my accomplishments, and yes, the social media proof of their indifference while I struggled, speak louder than any apology could. I could see it in their eyes, the unspoken question hovering in the air. What now? For years, they had assumed I would bend, forgive, and let everything slide, as I had in the past. But that Ava was gone. The woman who stood before them now was calm, composed, and fully aware of the leverage she held. I took a slow step forward, letting the silence stretch just long enough to let them feel it. Here's the thing, I began, my voice even but firm. I've survived without you. I've thrived without you. And now that you're here, you get to decide how much of your life you're willing to rebuild. I outlined the conditions carefully one by one, and I could see the weight of each sinking in. First, honesty. No more hiding behind smiles or pretending everything's fine. You will take responsibility for your choices, the good and the bad. If you want to be part of my life, that starts with truth. My mother's lips quivered, my father's shoulders stiffened, but I didn't relent. Second, respect. You will respect boundaries, my independence, and my decisions. I will not tolerate control disguised as care. If you want a relationship with me, you will meet me as an equal, not as someone you can dismiss. Then came the part that made them flinch the most. Third, growth. Each of you has your own potential, but you've spent years clinging to habits, excuses, and outdated patterns. You will pursue your dreams, your goals, and stop waiting for someone else to save you. That includes letting go of toxic behaviors that hurt not just me, but each other. I let my words hang in the air, watching the tension crack slowly. They wanted to argue, to object, to minimize, but I held their gaze unwavering. Compassion and firmness intertwined in every syllable. I care about you. But I won't go back to being the person who carries the weight of your indifference while you celebrate someone else's pain. A deep exhale came from my father, followed by my mother's tentative nod. My brother looked down, fidgeting, and I could sense the slow processing of truth, a mix of shame, guilt, and realization. Finally, a flicker of something like hope passed through their expressions. They had a choice now: continue old patterns, or accept the framework I set and begin to rebuild in honesty and integrity. I felt a strange mix of relief and pride wash over me. This was not punishment. This was a map for emotional accountability, a blueprint for healing. I wasn't doing this to humiliate them. I was doing this to protect myself and give them a chance to transform if they were willing. And as I looked around at their tentative faces, I realized that power wasn't about dominance. It was about clarity. I had survived, I had thrived, and now I had set the terms for a future where compassion met accountability. Finally, the control that had once been theirs was firmly, unequivocally in my hands. Weeks passed after that day, and I watched subtle but meaningful changes take root in my family. My mother called more often, not to interrogate or judge, but to share her progress in a community art class she had finally enrolled in. My father joined a local volunteer program, something he had long dismissed as frivolous, and my brother started pursuing the photography course he had always dreamed of, but never dared to take. The transformation was not instantaneous, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here, tracing the invisible thread from the day I left that suffocating living room to this moment of quiet empowerment. The surgeries, the pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights building my life, every struggle had carved the woman I had become. I realized that independence wasn't just financial or professional, it was emotional. It was knowing my worth even when the world didn't validate it, standing tall when others expected me to kneel, and choosing grace over bitterness. One evening, I pulled Grandma June's letter from my drawer. I read her words again, her loops of ink carrying the same quiet conviction as the day she wrote them. You carry a fire they may never see. Guard it, nurture it, and use it to light your own path. I smiled, tucking the letter back into its place. It had guided me through every challenge, and now it stood as a testament not only to her wisdom but to my own resilience. As I walked across my loft, sunlight spilling over the polished floors, I felt a deep sense of closure. I had faced betrayal, hurt, and neglect, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and unapologetically myself. The relationships I chose to nurture were now genuine, grounded in mutual respect and effort, not obligation or fear. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel fully at peace. I was Ava Sullivan, a woman who had been tested and had risen, a woman who had turned pain into power, betrayal into clarity, and solitude into self-discovery. And in that quiet, luminous moment, I whispered to myself, a voice soft but resolute, I am enough. I always was, and now I am unstoppable. Bottom of form.